running from God and not toward Him. And now I feel like I'm more running toward Him than I am running away from myself or running away from everybody else. Hi, everybody. I know it's been a while, but let me start with some introductions for those of you who don't know me. I go by Charlie for short, or Charlesea, whichever you prefer. And so this is my newest venture in the sense that it actually stemmed from something else. So I'm a Christian woman. I live in the Caribbean and I'm a communication professional, communication, media, marketing, PR, that kind of thing. Essentially taking things that people want to say and packaging it in a way that, others can consume it or they can feel comfortable receiving that information. I kind of was doing myself a disservice. I've never been the type to really, you know, put extra effort into the projects that I'm working on for myself. I tend to, do all this research and get like really creative from my clients, but I never actually do it for myself. This is something that I've always known, I've always been pretty comfortable with, but recently in this walk and in this journey with the Lord, he really has been pressing me to start this and to do this. It's something I've been running away from for a really long time, but I've had my time of rest and now it's time to run straight forward into my purpose, into what the Lord is calling me to do. For those of you who don't know, my journey started almost a year ago. It's going to be a year in a few weeks. In that time, I started because I was really suffering from a bad breakup and I just felt like everything was just going crazy in my life and everything was spiraling. But I kept wanting to keep this mask on of being okay. And it was like when I took down the mask, people started getting kind of uncomfortable and they'd make me feel kind of like, oh, well, why are you going through this? And so I just decided to give myself a year of peace, of calm, of forgiveness, and of grace. It didn't start where I wanted to delve into the Christian lifestyle, but as I progressed, I felt more and more called to this because it started with reading my Bible every day, and I started with a small scripture here and there, and it just kind of progressed. It grew into this thing. I've been learning so much about myself and everything, really, that I feel like it's time for me to really share all of that. This isn't the final product because I'm still a work in progress. Everybody's always a work in progress. You don't stop moving, you don't stop growing, you don't stop learning. So with that, I wanted to make sure that what I'm doing is, this proper, complete product. I actually wasn't as comfortable with it because I'm literally sitting in my living room talking to nobody. Yeah, the Lord pressed upon me that I should be doing this. So I'm trying to be obedient in that space. I think the last time that I was on YouTube, the last video that I posted 2 shorts ago, I was saying that the Lord is calling me to be, isolated a little bit and to kind of face my fear of being alone and kind of really get into understanding the concept of why I'm so lonely all the time and all of this. A little bit more backstory. So in between that time, which I think was like a month or two ago, but I kind of got into this mode of pushing my way through the discomfort, and I finally found this place where I didn't feel as uncomfortable being alone. There were a lot of things in my life that I could have probably chosen the easier way, and I chose to stick with the stick with the hard way. And it really did show me, a lot of things about myself. I've been healing from a lot of trauma, a lot of just different things, different emotional situations. And I'll go more into those topics a little bit more in other videos, but for right now, I'm just trying to set the stage a little bit. I do believe that it's necessary to be obedient when the Lord calls you. Rest for me looked like I was cooking, I was cleaning, I was being relatively productive, but in a quieter space so that I could at least hear from God and hear what, my instructions were gonna be, because I knew that after this point, a lot of things would change, a lot of things would shift, and they did. I'm really glad that I took the time to really just refocus everything and get to the space where I'm not as scared as much, not as anxious. I do still feel like sometimes, like, I kind of feel like the little, depression kicking in here and there, but because I'm being honest with myself and because I'm surrendering to the Lord and I'm resting in the Lord, a lot of what happens is I see the patterns and I can kind of like shift my mental state a little bit, So you spend some time praying and you spend some time worshiping, just being able to do that. So I'm really appreciative of that, especially given the fact that I've spent so many years in therapy. And then I finally got to a place where my diagnosis stopped being like a cloud over my head. And then it started being more like this was how I reacted. This was how I was. The rest essentially was just me working through a lot of the trauma and guilt and all the different negative emotions. And not to say that they're gone, but I am glad that at least I took that rest to kind of like, hone in on them and try to work on them. Now, this wasn't an easy role for me in terms of rest, because for me, rest is not something that you're allowed to do. Or rather, growing up, rest wasn't something that you were allowed to do. I'm a Caribbean woman. Like Saturday morning, you don't sleep in. You wake up to, to you have to wash this and you have to clean this and da da da. And so oftentimes, as a Caribbean woman, but then also as a mom, I felt a little guilty about taking time off to rest. And that was also something that I had to wrestle with, because again, it's not just about, oh, well, you're sleeping all day and you're not doing anything. Sometimes you need to allow yourself that time to rest, and giving myself that grace, giving myself that opportunity to not always be pushing, pushing, pushing actually gave me a lot of time to reflect. But then at some point, I noticed that the Lord was calling me to run. There are times when I can hear like the voice of the Lord really loud and it's like very commanding. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's not me. That is not something I'm thinking about. And I just kind of see it like, okay, I have to move. But sometimes I second guess myself because I don't want to make the wrong decisions. But I've learned that sometimes you can rest, sometimes you can run. And I actually had I had an experience of running very recently that caused me to see that I need to start being more obedient to the call to do stuff that the Lord calls me to do. I have no idea where this is going to go, but I know that I have to get up and go. I also wanted to delve into the concept of wholeness, because I felt like I was fractured. It was almost like I was picking and choosing to be strong, and I was picking the parts of myself that felt the best, and I displayed only the best to everybody else. And then I was kind of left with like the fractured parts and the hurt parts and the traumatized parts. When I kind of pulled everything together and I allowed the Lord to like work on me and really just fix this mosaic of a crazy personality, it became a lot clearer, like making sure that you're okay with the people around you, because sometimes the Lord does call you to do, certain things. And then other times he calls you to heal yourself. The Lord calls you to, to do things that will help you to kind of create more of a balance in your life. And through that, that is how I was able to kind of just be a little bit more whole. If it wasn't for the Lord being the glue that held all of those different fractured pieces, is holding all of those fractured pieces of my life together, I really wouldn't be here. And I'm not just talking about like, ideation kind of vibe. I'm more talking about the fact that like I literally wouldn't be here in this space doing anything, because I would still be trying to like fight against a conviction here or a thought there. And you're just running from God and not toward him. And now I feel like I'm more running toward him than I am running away from myself or running away from everybody else. Now, when it comes to like wholeness in the sense, I also credit a lot to my church family, I've found a place where my pastors and people that I congregate with, they're very caring people. They may not always be perfect people, but they are very caring. Sometimes like I find myself feeling so overwhelmed and, I'm like moved in the spirit and I just find myself like, in tears. And instead of somebody asking, hey, what's going on? They tend to just kind of like hand you a piece of paper, like, yeah, we get it. We understand. That in itself also feels very freeing for me because I've never really been in spaces where I'm allowed to just be not okay for a while, or like I'm allowed to cry, or I'm allowed to be vulnerable. So having that space also provided a lot of healing for me. So I would say, just thinking back about myself almost a year ago, dealing with like fresh wounds and fresh grief and everything. If I'm being honest, I don't feel as grieved as I did. Do I feel joyous and, like happy all the time? No. Like sometimes I'm joyous. Sometimes I feel really, really good. And then sometimes I just need a good cry because I think about things like where I was and where I am now. And sometimes I feel like the Lord really did work on me. Like he did. I'm still the same me, but I'm very, very different. Like I'm not as developed as I want to be yet. I still have parts of my life that I still kind of, I don't want to say mourn, but I still have parts of myself that I still feel kind of like, okay, is this something that I really, is this something I want? Is this something I don't want? And there are a lot of different things that I still have to figure out. But right now, if I judge myself based on where I was before and where I am now, I would say that before, if I didn't have everything figured out, I would be lost. I'd be a mess. I would be haphazard and running around trying to like fix things myself. Now that I'm not as worried about everything, like when things start to fall apart, I'm actually a lot calmer. I don't revert straight to anxiety, but I also don't like I allow myself to feel the feelings that I wasn't allowed to feel before, or I didn't allow myself to feel before, or other people didn't allow me to feel. And I feel genuinely happy for that person who I was before, that now, like, this is where I am. Being at peace with a lot of things, even if they're not things that I'm really excited about, I feel like I feel more at peace. So in the coming whenever, I will be working on more podcast episodes and I'll probably, have a guest here and there. There are a lot of people who I meet and have met, throughout my journey, and I would really love for them to come on the podcast and really have a conversation and see how this goes. So if you're interested, like, share, subscribe, hey, if it gets the word out there, if it is glorifying to God, I hope that it really does, that the message really does help you, because I am genuinely hoping that other people can experience a level of growth and maturity that I am currently experiencing, and also the level of acceptance and of peace that you have with knowing that, not everything is in your control, but the God of the universe is in control. So definitely have a blessed rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever. Um, and I hope to see you again when I get back.